Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my review of Wrestlemania Backlash, which took place on Sunday night. Wrestlemania Backlash, they call it a second chance at history. Why don't you just call it the do-over show? It's essentially what this was, with rematches aplenty throughout the night from Dallas. And speaking of which, let's begin the show with Seth F. Rollins, I should say, versus Cody Rhodes. And to give you an idea of just how much Wrestlemania Backlash was copying off WrestleMania's homework, Seth is just wearing the same outfit he had in Dallas. Also, am I wrong, or does Cody not have his elevator entrance anymore that he had in Dallas and the day after on Raw? He's got this thing with the sparklers shooting out in both ways now. That's not nearly as cool as the elevator, man. This match was just a lot of fun. It was some great back and forth that I really enjoyed here. Seth at one point dumping Cody out of the ring, mid-disaster kick to take over. Cody with a nice stalling superplex. He wants to go for a dive. He lands on his feet on the outside, which is very impressive. Goes back in the ring, hits the Cody cutter. Both men at one point want to hit the pedigree, but they can't. And then a few minutes later, Seth hits a big frog splash as a kick out. Goes for his superplex Falcon Arrow combo, but Cody cuts him off halfway and hits the crossroads in a kick out. Cody missing the moonsault. Seth hits him with a pedigree. Cody kicks out, which I think, you know what? If Cody never gets the chance to kick out of a Triple H pedigree, then I guess this will have to do. Seth doing the flip, flop, and fly to really twist the knife and sully the name of Dusty Rhodes and stuff, but Cody catches him and hits a crossroads, goes for the second one, but Seth fights out of that. We get a vertebraker attempt teased at one point, which I was freaking out about, and then so was Corey Graves on commentary, so I was glad that we were on the same wavelength, because I love the vertebraker. It's a great move. But there's a roll-up by Seth in the end. Cody counters it, grabs the tights to win 2 in a row. This was a terrific opening match for the show, and I think these guys really delivered. Dare I say the match was a bit better than their one in Dallas, especially when you take the whole fact that, Cody's debut or his return in Dallas was a big thing. That really added a big jolt of energy to the matchup. Now you don't have that. You don't have the luxury of a big surprise return for that match. So it's kind of judging it on the merits of the match itself. I think they did a great job here. Cody, Seth, I should say, probably feels a bit motivated to get a third match between the two of them since Cody did win by cheating, grabbing the tights and everything. So I would imagine that if they have a third match, and I'm sure they will, Rollins might win that one. Bobby Lashley takes on Omos in a rematch from Mania. This time MVP is in the bigger man's corner. There's clubbing blows by Lashley to start things off here, but MVP with a distraction early on, that allows Omos to take over. And MVP really is the story of this thing. You got Omos with the big head claw, snake eyes into a boot. On the outside, Lashley gets a chance to put MVP in the hurt lock, which gets a nice pop. Lashley back in the ring hitting a flatliner, and then when Omos is on his knees, is able to actually get the hurt lock in, which is pretty impressive to see. Lashley does manage to hit Omos with the spine buster, which looks a bit ridiculous, but a moment later, Lashley's been thrown into the corner post. MVP, with the referee distracted, jabs Lashley on the side of the head with his cane. That allows Omos to hit the two-handed chokeslam. Lashley kind of comes down awkwardly there, but nevertheless, Omos pins and wins. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. This was a pretty darn good match and exceeded my expectations. I think it was, again, it's the trend you'll see tonight. I think the rematch was better than what we saw at WrestleMania, and I think MVP being there kind of helped add to that story. Now that he's betrayed Lashley, he asserts himself here as a very physical, active manager. Some great feats of strength by Lashley as well in this match to keep him, looking strong as he can in this thing. Omos, I think, with MVP is a great combination. Hopefully, Omos can continue to improve. He's very athletic. I mean, I think when I look at Omos, I look at somebody they kind of hope they would have gotten with maybe the great Khali many years ago. But now, Omos is much younger. He's much healthier, so he can do a lot more stuff. And I think that can really open things up for him as well. So overall, yes, this was a good showing for both guys. Edge takes on AJ Styles, and this time Damian Priest is barred from ringside, so no standing by the ring looking menacing to allow AJ to lose this one. Styles does very well early on here, but the story is his wounded arm, and Edge does take advantage of that with a lot of arm attacks, working the shoulder for a good while. AJ comes back with a nice Pele kick and a double crossbody. AJ hits a Hurricane Rana off the top, gets the calf crusher in, but Edge grabs the ropes. Edge going for a spear, but he runs into the Chekhov's exposed turnbuckle that he himself opened up. AJ hits the Styles Clash. There's a kick out. Damian Priest shows up, but he's at the imaginary line between the aisleway and ringside, so technically, he's not crossed that border. But then Finn Balor comes in, jumps him from behind. They're fighting in the ring for a bit, and then in all the chaos, you had AJ on the top rope. A mystery figure, some individual, knocks AJ off the top rope. That allows Edge to put on on his cross-face sleeper. AJ passes out. Edge wins the rematch. And then afterward, the masked individual takes their mask off. It's Rhea Ripley, who we have seen get totally fucked over in booking for the last year. And so all I can think of when I see this happening is, this feels right. I give this one 4 stars out of 5 as well. I think it was a very strong babyface performance by Styles. The story of the arm and how he fought back from that I thought was very well done. Very good selling by AJ here. Priest as the misdirection leading into Rhea Ripley's interference I thought was like, okay, I get that, but if we're sticking to the rules here, Damian Priest did cross that imaginary boundary. He was not only at ringside, he was physically in the ring. And I know that Finn was beating him up, but wouldn't that be just cause for the referee to say, fuck this, the match is thrown out because he crossed the imaginary line? I mean, if we're paying attention to that kind of detail, that was my only thing. But no, to go back to the Rhea Ripley thing, I think this was something that a lot of people kind of predicted would happen because there was the rumors of Edge's group expanding. Rhea Ripley makes sense for a lot of reasons. One, I think she fits the aesthetic, the whole leather and darkness thing, but also the fact, like I said, her booking for the last year and a half or so since main roster time has been so inconsistent and just, dare I say, not good for her and her trajectory. So I think that this can't be much worse than what she was doing, teaming with like Nikki ASH and Liv Morgan and all that stuff. I think that this will be good for her, and I think I'm curious to know where this group with Edge, Damian, and Rhea's going to go, and who else they might add to the group. In an I Quit match for the Smackdown Women's Championship, Charlotte Flair defends against Ronda Rousey. Ronda is on the attack early on here, but a big suplex stops her in her tracks. On the outside, Charlotte grabbing a kendo stick. Ronda grabs that. Charlotte grabs 2 kendo sticks. Ronda grabs those from her, and then with a very Steve Blackman-esque style beatdown with the kendo sticks, just going thwackity thwack thwack thwack. That was very fun to watch. Fighting in the crowd at one point here, and then Charlotte bends Ronda backwards in the railing at one point, trying to get her to quit. Charlotte powerbombing Ronda onto the barricade at one point. Ronda bending Charlotte backward in the ring post. Charlotte fights out of that. Charlotte gets a chair out, offering Ronda one more chance in the end and saying, Happy Mother's Day, and oh, that did it. Ronda grabs Charlotte's arm through the chair, puts her in the arm bar, and tries to get her to quit. Charlotte says no, and Ronda says, I was hoping you'd say that, bitch. Puts it back in even more, and that causes Charlotte to say, I quit, and that allows Ronda to win the match and become the SmackDown Women's Champion for the first time. I will also give this match 4 stars out of 5. Of all the matches we saw that were rematches from Dallas, this one I think was much, much better than the previous encounter. I think it was a better story. I like the physicality more, a much more satisfying conclusion because you get rid of the whole bullshit with the referee like you had a month ago, and now you've got this kind of no holds barred kind of element which kind of allows them to do more. And I think that really played to both their strengths here. Both women really brought it. This is a physical match that I really enjoyed. We find out later in the show that Charlotte is being written off with what I believe is a kayfabe broken radius. So I think that's probably a smart play as well. Charlotte's been very dominant for a long time, and I think if you want to really put Ronda over as this new dominant babyface force, just keep Charlotte away for a while. Let her rest and get her time off, and that will hopefully bring elevation to some of the other ladies on the SmackDown roster that Ronda can work with and have some fresh opponents, and will hopefully make her run pretty interesting. Happy Corbin taking on his former protege and jester, the man with the suspenders himself, Madcap Moss. Something I realized here in commentary, I forgot that Baron Corbin also won the Honor the Giant Battle Royal. That feels like a lifetime ago when he won it, by the way. Madcap starts off hot, but then Corbin cuts him off with a choke slam. Moss fights back from the head and arm submission Corbin does so well, but Corbin does his slide in and out gimmick to stay on top. Corbin doing a senton, which surprises Cole on commentary, and Pat McAfee's like, who's this guy getting better? They brawl on the outside for a bit. Back in the ring, Corbin hitting deep 6, but there's a kick out. He does the sliding gimmick again, but it does not pay off. Moss wins with a sunset flip, which to me is almost more embarrassing than Corbin losing to all those surprise roll-ups over the years. Who loses to a sunset flip? Happy Corbin does, apparently. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. This was a fine match. Maybe not like a pay-per-view match per se. The story dictates that it goes on pay-per-view, but this match itself was fine. I think Moss looked good here. Corbin was a good foil for him, and I think this win, even though I didn't predict Moss to win this match, I still think it's a big deal for him to win it. I mean, it's probably a short, except for the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, this is his big singles victory, his biggest singles victory to date against someone like Corbin. I think it legitimizes him a lot more. anymore. All we need is for him to drop the suspenders. You can keep the shorts, but like lose the suspenders, it's too, I just can't buy into him when he's got the suspenders, man. Or put a shirt underneath. Something. Make the ensemble work for me, bro. Oh, and speaking of bro, time for our main event match. Instead of the tag title unification match we were kind of expecting during the build for this show, instead it is now a 6-man tag team match as the Bloodline take on Drew McIntyre and RK Bro. No championships on the line here. Essentially, it feels like a house show match. Faces start out strong against the Usos. Drew wants Roman in the ring, and there's this moment where Heyman's screaming, "I love you! You're my tribal chief! Don't tag in!" And then so Roman does tag in. They tease the face off, but then Roman tags out right away. You can hear Heyman cackling about that. Roman finally tagging in once Riddle's the one getting worked over, and Riddle is taking the most of the heat in this matchup here. Gets the hot tag on Drew as Roman tags in. Roman with some great body language here when he realizes he miscalculated the hot tag here. They're throwing bombs, but eventually Roman takes over, takes a minute to pose with his 2 belts, then walks into a Claymore. Another hot tag to Jimmy and Orton. Orton on a big comeback here, hits the RKO onto Roman and to Jimmy. Almost over right there, but there's a save. Riddle's on a run, but he's taken out with a big neck breaker. Drew's setting up the announce table, but he's driven through it instead. Then Riddle and Jay each do a dive. Riddle at the top rope, RKO onto Jay, but Roman with a blind tag, spearing Riddle out of, well, if he had boots, he gets speared out of them, for Roman and the Bloodline to win. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. It was a pretty strong main event match. I think everyone had a chance to look really good, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this match feels like it ultimately means nothing, because there were no belts on the line. Both Roman and Drew, I think, were protected here. Drew especially because he wasn't the one who took the pinfall, but I think if you want to get him over more as a contender to Roman, he really needed to pick up a win. And maybe not beating Roman in the ring, like I said in my predictions video, but beating somebody. If you're going to have Roman pinning Riddle, I think you could easily make the argument to have Drew pin Jimmy or Jay, and I think that would have been just as, first of all, have the fans walk home happy. Secondly, you also just legitimize Drew a little bit more and make him like he's really coming at Roman and really nipping at those heels to get the belts back, and so a bit of a missed opportunity there. Otherwise, though, really strong match to end the show. Just you kind of wanted to end on kind of a higher note, I would say. Man, it's really hard for me to grade this show, I feel, because on the one hand, I kind of want to give the overall presentation a C+, but then when you look at just the wrestling by itself, I would give it more of like a B- or a B. So let's kind of meet in the middle and give it a B- here. I think it was a great night of wrestling. Like I've been saying throughout this review, the matches, the rematches were usually better than the originals in Dallas, which for a couple of those is saying something, because those Dallas matches, a couple of them anyway, were pretty good. But I think the biggest hindrance this match had was there were just too many rematches from Dallas, and there were just so few stakes involved in a lot of this. Outside of Rhea Ripley's reveal in the Edge AJ match, like there weren't a whole lot of like wow moments. I'm not asking for like WrestleMania level wow moments, but like give me something to make it worthwhile watching the show. And there was that, and it was like Lashley putting the hurt lock on Omos were probably the 2 biggest moments I could probably remember for a while from this show. Will this be one of the better shows of the year when it's all said and done? I don't think so. I mean, wrestling-wise, great. That's the expectation we've come to kind of expect from WWE. But in terms of like storyline progression, it was pretty lacking for me. But what did you think of WrestleMania Backlash, folks? Let me know in the comment section below. And stay tuned for later this week when I'm reviewing the first season of Hogan Knows Best. That episode drops this Wednesday. But until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.